Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today. I am Dr. Lewis, a director of graduate programs here at the University of Michigan-Flint. I'm really excited that you're here today to talk about this really important topic because especially, this is being recorded right at the cusp of finals week as we move into finals week, and sleep and diet sometimes go out the window when it comes to this time of the term when you're stressed out and you're trying to deal with those type of things as you're finishing off your terms. So it's really important to be able to have some strategies in place to be able to help you to be able to make sure that you're going to be successful in your academic pursuits, but also in the impact that it has on mental acuity as well. So I'm really excited that Matthew Oxley is here with us today. And Matthew is one of our CAPS counselors here at the University of Michigan-Flint. And I am really excited for him to be able to talk to you today to share some tips and hints that can help you and help you move forward. So Matt, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I know I did one of these a couple months back and I enjoyed it. So glad to be back doing another one of these lectures. All right. So I guess without further ado, we'll jump into it. Like Dr. Lewis said, hello, my name is Matthew, whatever you want to call me. I'm one of the CAPS counselors here at CAPS. We work out of USEN. I have a master's in clinical mental health, limited license for right now. Should be full license soon, but it's not why you guys are here. Today, we're going to be talking about how sleep and diet affect academic performance and mental acuity. Before we really get started, I do want to lay it out right now. I'm not going to be giving you guys medical advice. I'm not going to be giving you guys like therapeutic advice. This isn't a substitute for therapy or a substitute for going to see your PCP or a sleep doctor or anything like that. These are just information about sleep and diet, how to improve them, how to improve your mental and academic business, and then, yeah, we will go from there. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So as a baseline, the importance of sleep and diet. Starting us off with sleep. This is going to come as a surprise to you guys. We have a biological need for sleep. I know, it's crazy. But sleep is controlled by homeostasis. The need to sleep goes up the longer you are awake. So the longer you're awake, the more you need to sleep. It sounds weird to explain it because we've all experienced it throughout our lives. But so sleep does also improve physical health. According to the National Institute of Health, sleep has positive effects on your heart, hormones, metabolism, and immune system. The Center for Disease Control also recommends 7+ hours of sleep at night for adults. This is anyone over the age of, I would normally say 18 for adults, but it does get a little bit different when we talk about like younger adults. We'll get to that though. Sleep cycles. Sleep cycles are important. Every 80 to 100 minutes. There are a couple of different stages here when we talk about sleep. So non-REM sleep has 3 different stages where stage 1, we're kind of falling asleep, feeling drowsy. Stage 2, we are asleep. And then stage 3, we are in a deep sleep or a slow wave sleep. Slow wave refers to your brain wave patterns that are measured throughout the night, with stage 3 being more prevalent early in the night. So the earlier in the night you are, the more earlier you are into your sleep, the more likely you are to have your slow wave sleep. Now, REM sleep is fun. REM sleep is your brain activity looks similar to when you're awake, if that makes sense. It's when you dream, your muscles kind of go limp, your eyes move rapidly, and this happens later on in the night, the more we sleep. So sleep deficits, I'm gonna kind of lay it on the table right now. In short, naps can help, but it will take several days of consistent sleep in order to remedy any symptoms of not sleeping enough. There's catching up on sleep is not something that you really do. Diet, on the other hand, the World Health Organization does have standards for a healthy diet. This includes fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, whole grains, and limited intake from fats. A couple different kinds of fats that are important to talk about. Saturated, unsaturated, and trans fats all refer to chemical structures of fats that are found in food. So unsaturated fats, those are things found in fish, nuts, avocados, olive oil, anything like that. Saturated fats are things that are found in butter, cream, like cheese, or really like fattier red meat, things like that. And then finally, trans fats. That's been the buzzword for the last couple of decades. Trans fats are found in baked or fried foods, found in processed foods, and they're also sometimes found in meat from ruminant animals, which I learned are animals with multiple stomachs, like sheep and cows for chewing cud, as it were. Um, World Health Organization recommends less than 10% of your daily intake be saturated in trans fats. Does not recommend processed trans fats at all. Now, like we said, obviously with trans fats naturally occurring in some animals that we consume, like beef, lamb, things like that. Not all trans fats are inherently bad, but when they're processed, they tend to get a little bit worse for your diet. The exact contents of a healthy diet vary from person to person. I like to throw this bit in there because, like, you guys don't really get a reference point for it on camera. I'm a big dude, and something like my calorie intake might look a lot different to someone who's half my size, something like that. So everyone is going to have a little bit of a different diet. Anecdotally, though, the key to a healthy diet is moderation, just keeping everything as well balanced as you can, right? Now, touching specifically on sleep. So, sleep, school, and mental health. Again, another shocker for you guys. Students are prone to developing unhealthy sleeping patterns. I know, I'm full of surprises here today. As graduate students trying to balance class, work, homework, outside activities such as internships or clinicals, as well as things like social relationships or even family relationships. I know some of you guys have, kids or parents or a spouse at home that you need to be with or take care of to some degree. All of these things can lead to poor sleep schedules. And poor sleep has been shown to lead to more mental health problems such as aggression, anxiety, distress, and depressive symptoms. These symptoms are shown to be both external and internal, so kind of like more rule-breaking somatic responses. Students who receive less than the recommended 7 to 8 hours of sleep show significantly higher rates of sleep deprivation and significantly lower overall GPAs, correlating to the amount of sleep or lack thereof that they receive. Less sleep and more nighttime disruptions are associated with more self-reported total problems. In that same study that I just talked about, students with less sleep reported more depressive symptoms, had a harder time focusing, and reported more memory issues compared to those who slept more adequately. Most students, like 90% of students in this 2017 study, received less than 8 hours per night, right? That's why we saw this sort of spike in these symptoms, right? As graduate students, we're no strangers to stress. Stress can interfere with sleep. It can also interfere with time management skills, right? Continuing on here. So in this next study, Rayleigh et al., they compared sleep duration and academic performance across a multitude of different variables. Students who reported getting the same or more hours of sleep prior to an exam had higher cumulative GPAs, whereas students with lower GPAs tended to have less sleep. On a typical non-exam day, students who slept longer on average had significantly higher GPAs than students who suffered from sleep deprivation. And students enrolled in more courses or more difficult courses reported staying up later to study or complete assignments, resulting in less sleep. Falling all over my words there. Other variables that affect these students' abilities to sleep include stressful lifestyles, class schedules, and workload, work schedules, caffeine intake, kind of like we said, these social relationships, familial relationships, any other obligations that you might have. Poor quality of sleep, including a shorter sleep duration, right? So you can sleep great, but if you only get 4 hours of sleep a night, that's a short sleep duration. If you have an irregular sleep schedule, if you are sleep deprived, or you have daytime sleepiness, that is all falling under this poor quality of sleep, right? A lot of students have delayed circadian rhythms. Now, what that means is that some of you guys, particularly on the younger end, right, you may not feel sleepy until later in the evening, but we're all forced to wake up early at the exact same time. And unlike undergrad, as graduate students, it's really not uncommon to have classes that run late into the evenings, right? I remember the latest class I had back in the day, we went from, I want to say we started at 7 and we got out at 10:30 for the lectures back then. Um, but kind of like we've talked about before, other obligations, right? A lot of you guys are going to be working part-time or full-time. Some of you guys might have kids. Some of you guys might have other commitments that you're a part of. These things might force us to be awake before our body is ready, right? Might force us to be up far too early relative to how we would normally want to in that situation, right? Now, moving on from sleep a little bit, touching very briefly on diet here. Poor diet has been shown to affect mental health just as it affects physical health. Now, the study that I cite here, in the Western diet, it talks about, this Western diet, which consists of highly processed foods, red meats, high sugar drinks, and a bunch of sweets, has put people of higher risk at developing these sorts of health issues with anxiety or such as anxiety and depression, right? That's on the mental health end, not to really talk about the physical health end, right? Now, another study from 2010, a little bit dated, but again, it's held up over the years. This study suggests that the Mediterranean diet can offer protection against these depressive symptoms. Mediterranean diet, it consists of fruits, vegetables, fish, other unsaturated fats, kind of like we talked about earlier, natural oils, things like that. Additionally, caffeine has been shown to be one of the biggest causes of irritability and anxiety. On average, Americans consume 2 to 3 servings of caffeinated beverages per day. And what is a caffeinated beverage? Coffee, pop, energy drinks, black tea that you got from the farmer's market before your lecture started that you had to give. I'm guilty as charged when it comes to caffeine. I don't often survive without it, but micronutrients or the lack thereof, such as B vitamins, iron, zinc, and magnesium, also play an important role in the development of these depressive symptoms. These micronutrients are found within this Mediterranean diet, which is kind of what helps that. If you have anxiety or are prone to panic, prone to panic attacks, things of that nature, decreasing caffeine intake right before you go to bed, in the evening, right? That's shown to help reduce instances of anxiety and panic throughout the day and throughout the evening. Moving on here. So, diet and academic performance. A consistent intake of healthy foods does lead to better academic performance, as per a study done in 2018. Daily breakfast and weekly salad are shown to significantly impact academic achievement in adolescents. Now, I understand this study is for adolescents. The University of Washington, as far as breakfast specifically is concerned, they said it consists of fruits, vegetables, grains, dairy, and protein foods. These all make for the healthiest breakfast things to start the day. It doesn't mean you need to eat something the second you wake up, right? I know a lot of people don't often love that, but protein-rich foods and vegetables support academic achievement across long periods of time. And to continue on from this 2019 study, adolescents studied for 2 academic years in high school who met and maintained Canadian recommendations of fruits, vegetables, and protein-rich foods, such as meat and eggs, were associated with better academic performance during the 2-year period. They tracked math and English in this study, and they actually found that the protein-rich foods showed the most benefit when paired with recommended fruit and vegetable intake, right? So kind of like we touched on at the very beginning, that moderation piece in diet is very important, right? You can't just have a bunch of protein and expect to feel fantastic. You have to balance that out with the fruits, the vegetables, the consistent breakfast, that weekly salad that they talked about in the Burns study. Now, I mentioned that these studies were done on adolescents, right? I would assume nobody watching this lecture is an adolescent at this point. Studies performed on these younger adults, on these high school age kids, they still have implications for older adults. On the youngest end, graduate students can be, 22 years old? That's not that far removed from 17, right? And it's not like these nutritional needs dissipate when we get older, right? So like I said, despite being done on adolescents, these still have, good Lord, I'm falling all over myself today, implications for adults as well. Now, how do they interact together? How do sleep and diet interact? There are notable negative interactions between sleep and diet. A study among Spanish university students revealed that students with poor diets were more likely to have poor sleep habits. You can directly linking the two of them together from a 2022 study. Notably, decreased or infrequent intake of fruits, vegetables, and legumes, as well as increased or unbalanced intakes of sweets and sugary drinks led to worsened sleep quality. Right? As noted in the past slides, adherence to a Western diet, in addition to other unhealthy diet factors, has been shown to lead to both worse sleep overall and higher reports of depression. That leads to, again, those energy drinks, sweets, fast food. Guilty as charged on a lot of those things. I'm not a big energy drink guy, but nothing quite goes with a cup of coffee, much like a second cup of coffee in the morning. So caffeine consumption is definitely up there. A lot of these things that we're talking about, right? They are significant, but not definitive. You know, diets consisting of less vegetables, fruit, and poultry are considered Western, or anything that's considered Western or unhealthy. They're different categories, right? Unhealthy, as defined by a study in 2021, refers to high fat and red meat consumption, among other factors, right? You want more information about that Western diet? I recommend you go give it a search yourself, kind of figure out the differences and the nuances as those things stand there. Working hours also affect sleep and diet. This is a big thing for me. When I'm in session, I very adamantly push students taking breaks. Longer working hours, 48-ish hours a week, these are shown to negatively impact both sleep and mental health. The above study from 2017, this accounts solely for working hours, solely for 6 days a week, 8-hour shifts. Doesn't talk anything about academic related activities such as class, homework, other school related activities in that time. Because I know it's not quite like undergrad where you're as, you know, entrenched in what's going on campus, but there's still a lot to do. There's a quote from this study: when we consider the demand our students or studies have on us, we can anecdotally relate school hours to working hours. That's not a quote, I suppose. Again, some of these speaker notes are older than I would like, but yeah, it's not unfair for us if we're only working 20 hours a week and doing 30 hours of school to kind of anecdotally compare these academic hours to these working hours, because it's the same amount of mental strain, right? When we combine the two together, it could only lead to potentially worsened sleep or mental health, right? If you do work a full-time job, if you are a full-time graduate student, and you do have all these other obligations that we've touched on, that's a lot to do, right? 40 hours of work per week significantly affects dietary fiber in older adults. See, this is where we kind of move away from the adolescents, the students. We talk more about older adults, right? Dietary fiber helps regulate blood sugar, hunger, bowel movements, among other benefits, as per the Mayo Clinic in 2022. The study found that nearly half the participants who worked more than 52 hours a week ate out daily. Why do people eat out when they work 52 plus hours a week, right? It's convenient. You don't want to go home and make a big 3-course meal after you've been at work for 10 or 12 hours a day. It makes sense, right? The more we work, the significantly less dietary fiber, or how it's affected rather, is shown in older adults. Why include a study for older adults? As we've said, grad students come in all age groups, right? And it's important to understand how excessive working can affect us later in life, as well as how it affects us in our more youthful stages, right? Because given that you guys are in graduate school, I would imagine that you're going to be working hard for quite a while after this. Other factors that do contribute to sleep and diet: physical activity and screen time. In addition to their research on diet and academic performance, a 2018 study also noted that students with 60 minutes or more of physical activity have significantly higher odds of achieving A's and B's in school. Physical activity, screen time, much like sleep and diet, these things differ from person to person, right? It's important to find that healthy balance, right? In 2019, Thought et al. Found that adolescents who reported less screen time showed positive relations with academic achievement, right? I was watching TikTok before this lecture started. I'm not trying to tell you to not use screens. I'm not trying to tell you to constantly be physically active. But kind of like we talked about, kind of like I just mentioned, it's going to differ from person to person. And it's all about that moderation and it's all about that balance, right? Some of this stuff, it's not the most uplifting in the world to learn that you guys are going to be working a lot and going to be probably sleep deprived and possibly not eating the best when it comes to your guys' diets. How can we ensure that we're doing all right? Right? Where are we at here? The importance of balance. Like I've said, I am very adamant about this in my counseling sessions. Sleep and diet will look different for everyone, right? Take time to examine your diet and examine your sleeping routines. Is what you're doing working for you, right? Find the balance that works for you if it's not. This is going to take practice, but it shouldn't be viewed as a chore, right? I like to use my sister and I as examples of difference in sleep and balance. My sister is about 2-ish years younger than me. My sister is in bed by 9 p.m. and she has a shoots and twigs diet, as I like to say. She's very much a grazer. She eats very healthy food. She's very health minded. She gets to bed early. She wakes up super early to go to work, hours before she needs to go. I am not that way. I do not have a shoots and twigs diet. I like to eat healthy, but I also like to not eat healthy because it's convenient sometimes. I'm also definitely a night owl. I'm not a big fan of waking up at 4 a.m. for work, but I could stay up till 4 a.m. if you really needed me to, right? This is the difference between even siblings, right? It's going to differ from person to person, right? When I talk about examining your own sleep schedule, right? Like paying attention to like how you sleep, how you eat, things like that. It can look like journaling. You can log what you eat, you can log how you sleep. I know there are apps on your phone. If you guys have any like smartwatches that track sleep, or it can be something simple. Take a second, think about how you feel after you eat or after you sleep. I know that can be a slippery slope in some cases, but for the sake of finding the balance, try that challenge, right? I don't want you guys to view it as a chore. You guys have enough chores. You're graduate students, right? I don't know what program you guys are a part of, but I know it's probably not the easiest thing in the world, right? It's also important to regularly engage in both self-care and self-soothing activities. Now, there is a difference between the two of them. This is one of my therapy soapboxes that I like to talk about here. So, self-soothing activities, these are things you can do like in the moment to help relieve stress immediately. This is watching Netflix, taking a bath, going on a walk, sitting on your phone, right? The thing about self-soothing is that if it's overused, they can backfire and become a hindrance. A question I always like to ask people, what happens if you watch Netflix for 48 straight hours? You probably missed class. You probably have something due. You probably missed work. You probably smell bad because you haven't gotten up. You probably haven't showered. You're probably kind of hungry, maybe a little dehydrated, right? If we self-soothe too much, it can, like I said, backfire and not be nearly as effective for us. Self-care, on the other hand, self-care behaviors are intentional, right? Self-care behaviors, they look like time management. They look like boundary setting. They look like communication, right? These are just a few examples of what good intentional self-care can look like. You can never have too much of this stuff, right? That's not to say self-soothing methods are inherently evil, but instead of just soothing, without any sort of time frame or intention or whatever, combining the two together usually are the most effective for alleviating some of these, depressive or more anxious symptoms, right? An example I like to give: many years ago when I was in graduate school, I was not having the best of days. I had to give a presentation, much like this one, talking about self-care and self-soothing. And I had to be very kind of extroverted and eccentric, like I am right now. And it was a terrible feeling I had. And I remember telling myself, when I am done with this presentation, I'm going to go home and just feel bad for a while. And that's exactly what I did. I said it in the presentation too. I said, once I'm done presenting, I'm getting out of here because I have allotted my time to feel sad, right? That is my soothing time with, after I'm done with this. Self-care is that you you block those parts out for you and you stick to it, right? The tricky part about setting time boundaries with self-care, obviously self-soothing things feel good. I would much rather, go home and play a game or watch a show than I would have to put up with something difficult like academic assignments, or perhaps something going on in my personal life that I don't want to like face in that very moment. That's fine. These things are difficult and they are going to take practice. You really can never have too much self-care though. So I really encourage you guys to practice it. Just like we talked about with sleep and diet, I encourage you guys to practice this stuff. Look into it, journal it if you feel like you need to. And then if nothing is working out and things still seem very like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, right? No, nothing is particularly working out. You guys are students at U of M-Flint. CAPS is available to you. I'm sorry for the shameless self-promotion, but we serve graduate students, we serve undergrads, we serve doctoral students. As long as you guys are enrolled, you can come to CAPS for in-person or remote appointments, and we can talk about some of these issues, right? We're always happy to help you guys out. Now, this is where we are going to wrap up our lecture. I'd like to thank everyone who sat in on the lecture, who watched it live. I would like to thank everyone who watched it after the fact. Appreciate you guys for going back. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. A little bit shorter for you guys, half an hour-ish. I'd like to offer thanks to Dr. Lewis for setting this whole thing up, having me come speak today. Thank you so much. If you guys do have any questions, if you watched this and you weren't here live, you feel free to shoot me an email that'll be posted with the slides when they're sent out. Finally, like I said earlier, to reiterate the shameless self-promotion, if you guys need help with sleep, diet, other mental health concerns, please don't hesitate to come to CAPS. I know grad school is very busy. I know you guys aren't necessarily spoiled for choice when it comes to availability in your schedules, especially depending on, what you're studying in graduate school. But please don't let those things hinder your willingness to come in if you need help. We see graduate students all the time. Actually, so this is being recorded in December of 24. Starting next semester, I believe, in January of 25, we're starting a graduate student group. So keep an eye out for that on the CAPS website, on our social media pages. Go check all that stuff out if those are things you guys are interested in. But that is all I have for you guys today. So I'm going to throw it back over to Dr. Lewis and we will close this out.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you being here and sharing all of this really important information. And as Matthew said, it is so important to be able to advocate for yourself. Make sure that if you need help, if you feel that you need help, that you do reach out. Take advantage of the resources that are available for you on campus and make sure that you're taking advantage of that as you go through the program, because there's going to be time where you might hit that wall or you might feel like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do next? And you don't have to feel like you're alone in this. And that's what I think that all of the sessions that we've been providing in the past have tried to tell you, is that you are not alone as you're going through this graduate school experience. And we want you to be able to know that there are resources available to help you no matter what it is. So please reach out. and get the assistance that you might need. But I really appreciate you being here. And Matthew, thanks so much for your time and for sharing all that you shared today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.